Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. Today's video is kind of a continuation of a video that I did earlier this year where I showed you my very first week in the life and how I was fitting a bunch of photos into my layouts using these different size protectors. So I have a video that I will link at the end of this video and down in the description if you want to see how this all came together. I also show all the product I'm using and also the process of how I go through my photos and pick and choose in order to get it down to a manageable number. So in my last video, I shared a lot with you at the beginning of that process, and so I only made it to, what day was this? Tuesday of that week. So I still have Wednesday through Sunday to do. We will see if I can fit it all in this video. I'm going to try to. I'm still using the same products. It's the little things, the stickers, the paper, some party time, picture my life. Hopefully this will be enough paper to get me through. If not, I will pull in some other paper from my stash. Now, just like in my last video, I have a bunch of different sizes of protectors here. I also have my plans. So I showed you how I use my little sketchbook to plan out my layouts. I usually do this process while I am ordering my photos or selecting my photos. This time I did order photos. I wanted to get an enlargement, so I got a 6x8 enlargement, which I'm really excited about using. And I'm in Canada, so I use London Drugs. They are my favorite photo processor. They have lots of different sizes. They do square photos, and they do a pretty good job too. So I have a whole bunch of photos here to squeeze into these pages. So let's get started. When I'm planning out my pages, I like to lay out the divided page protectors first. I do have my sketch that I'm working from, but I like to lay out the pieces and just kind of see how they're going to look together, figure out what cards I'm going to use or pattern papers. This right here is a sticker from the sticker pack that went with this collection. The collection is no longer available, but I had already started this project and I like to keep the same collection for the whole project. So I drew some journaling lines on the sticker with my T-ruler, and now I'm just writing in a little bit of a story. I really like these LePens. They're super slim and they come in a big range of colors, and I find them really nice to write with. Kind of the perfect size for me. I will link them down in the description for you. Now that Wednesday card, which is my title card for this day, is on the back side of one of the party time picture my life cards, and I showed the alphabet and everything that I'm using in my last video, so if you want to go check that out, I will also link everything down in the description. Now I flipped it over. I don't think I needed to put those back in the pockets, but I did. I flipped over to the back side. I'm going to end up pulling out those pieces that are in the pockets, and I'm just trying to figure out where everything should go. This whole side is basically one story of my daughter going to my friend's house for the day. Usually she goes over there once a week so that I have a day to work, and that's what this whole side of this page is about. Now, the farther I get into my project, the more scraps I have to work with. So I am trying to use up all the little strips and cut my patterns down into smaller pieces so that I can get the most out of them. I decided to just use the back of the title card, and at first when I sticking this on here, I thought it would line up okay, but there's this tiny little gap in between the two photos, and there was printing on the back side, so I can see that little bit of green. Just measuring because I'm like, I thought this was exact, but there was a little bit showing through, so I just pulled up that photo, moved over a little bit, and then I'm going to stick this pattern piece down. The border stickers that are in this set are not 6 inches, which is kind of annoying, but I just give it a little snip there close to where I knew it would be covered up by this little tag. That's also a sticker. And then I wanted a little like word strip sticker. I love using little word stickers like this to just add to clusters of embellishments. So I love it when sets of stickers like this have a bunch of different phrases or words that you can add into your clusters. It's at this point that I'm thinking I want some ribbon in that little tag. So thankfully I was able to peel it up off my photo okay and just slide this white ribbon in there. So it was kind of like sitting up a little bit weird, so I used some glue dots to stick it down and get it to lay nice and flat to go into my page. And now on to the next one. I'm going to try and repeat some patterns on this page so that every pocket on here has a little bit of pattern, and I want them to kind of tie in together. So even though that sticker strip isn't the exact same as this black pattern paper, I'm just going to use them because they're fairly similar. With this whole process, I'm trying to kind of find a balance between things being decorated and decorative and looking finished and embellished the way that I like, but also keeping it simple enough so that it's not completely overwhelming. Because with all the different size pockets and there's lots of photos, there's lots of different colors, it can become too much. So I'm trying to find that balance. Here I was running out of greenery for my flowers, so I used a little potted plant, and that actually worked out really well. And then that little pop of bright pink. And down here at the bottom, I'm using 2 smaller strips of those same 2 patterns that I used on the middle card. And I cut them to perfectly cover the pink. And then here, I decided I wanted to rip it. And then I was like, oops, now it's not wide enough. But thankfully, the part that said party under there had bright pink, which works in with my other 2 sections on this page. So I'm just going to leave a little bit of that bright pink showing, and it will tie in to the little spots of pinks on this page. So this is what we have so far for Wednesday. I have the front and the back. I went ahead and added journaling on that card. It's nice that it had grid lines, so it was super easy to just handwrite my journaling in, basically telling the story of that day. And then I decided I wanted to have more of this day because, I didn't fit many pictures in that first section. So I'm doing a 12 by 12 pocket page. It has 2 4x6s at the top, 2 4x6 at the bottom, and then 4 3x4s. Still wasn't enough because I took a lot of pictures on this day that I really liked. So I ended up deciding to do some flip flaps. So I adhered my pictures back to back. I like to adhere them so they're not sliding around inside the pocket. And actually the same thing for all my pocket pages. Once I have everything figured out of where everything's going and my page is, ready to be done, if there's 2 separate cards or photos in a pocket, I will go in and adhere them together. So that way there's no white edges sticking out, there's nothing sliding around. Now I'm just auditioning pieces, kind of figuring out where I want things. I want to repeat those patterns that I have on the left-hand page, and I'm bringing in some of those black paperboard die cuts that went with this collection. Both the pink polka dotted card and the blue journaling card at the top are from that Party Time collection. And you can see down here on my bottom photo, I took this little arrow from that paperboard collection and I backed it with white cardstock so that it would stand out, and then just glued it on there. So I like to take elements from the facing page and bring it over to the next page if I can. Kind of ties everything together. And of course, using the same collection through the whole project also helps everything feel cohesive. So I went through my stash and I decided to bring in some stamps. This first one is called Today by Melissa Esplin. And I love the scripty words on this one. And then this one is called Here's the Story. It's an old stamp of the month, so it's no longer available. And then this one is called Movie Night. And I have never used this set, but it did come in handy on this project. And I knew when I got it that it might be something that I don't use right away, but when I need it, I'm going to be really glad that I have it. So I'm going to use Archival black ink for my stamping, both on paper, so on this journaling card, and also when I go to stamp on my photo. I love stamping on my photos, especially for these types of projects. You can do that right in like a photo editor. You can put words and things on your photos, but a lot of times I don't have it that planned out. Sometimes I do, but a lot of times I don't. So I like to go after the fact and stamp right on my photos. So you just want to make sure you use something like StazOn or Archival, something that will dry well on your photo paper and not slip around too much. So I end up putting snacks, I love you most, because my dog Frankie is always looking for snacks. So here's a look at my finished day for Wednesday. This is all I'm going to document for this day. And I have most of my journaling contained to those 2 big blocks. And I like the way that looks. It keeps it neat and tidy. There's not too many words all over the place. And because I was mostly working this day, I didn't have a ton of photos anyways, so I don't need to use the back side of this page. I love the bonus of the interactive element that the flip flaps bring. It makes it more fun to look through. And sorry you guys for all of the reflections on the page protectors. It's really hard to film without getting reflections on the pages. Now I'm going to move on to Thursday, and for this one I thought it'd be fun to do a large flip flap. So this is an 8x12 flip flap, and I'm actually going to put it on the back side of that pocket page. So we did the front side for Wednesday. I flipped it over to the back side, and that flip flap is going to get stuck right onto the left hand side, which not only gives me another interactive feature, but it also gives me a space to add a little bit more design. Sometimes with all the pockets, it can get super photo heavy and there's not a lot of room for decorating, which I do enjoy and makes the process more fun for me. This is possibly my most favorite page in this whole project. I decided to do a ray design. So rays of pattern paper across the top of this 8x12 piece of white cardstock. I cut the patterns into 2x6-inch blocks, and then I just cut them diagonally. And I was just kind of pulling patterns, see what I had left to work with, and I'm just going to kind of play with placement, move them around, try and keep it somewhat balanced between the really strong colors and the black and white patterns, and basically just trying not to put 2 of the same next to each other or too many really saturated colors too closely together. I figured it doesn't matter too much as long as I don't have 2 of the same right side by side or only one ray away. And then I was trying to figure out, how do I make this end evenly? So what I decided to do was to just draw a line across the bottom where I wanted this to end, because I'm going to have my photo, or I'm going to have my title partially cover up where all the points meet. So if the points don't meet perfectly, okay, it's not a big deal. But I wanted the ending point to be pretty even. Then I decided to cover the whole top area with strips of my ATG adhesive, rather than putting tape on each of those little pieces and then not being able to use the rest, like the scraps of the piece that's hanging over the edge. I thought this way, if I cut off all the extra pieces, I can maybe use them somewhere else, which I do end up doing. And as I'm going around here, I don't have too much of a plan. I'm basically controlling how they're going on by how far in the point is going. So you can see here it wasn't working out for spacing, so I did have to go back a little bit and readjust because I wanted all my rays to be the exact same size. I didn't want to have to trim down each ray or anything. So by pulling it out a little bit farther or pushing it in a little bit farther, I was able to make it all fit. It took me a little bit to figure out how I wanted this title. I had to play around with it for a while. So this happy is from a thin cut, and I cut several of them and stacked them up together to make them stand out from the page a little bit more. And then the stitched hearts that you see are another retired thin cut set. I decided to throw a couple of those in there. And then I just used a piece of green shimmer trim to kind of end off that ray area. It seemed like it needed a stopping point. And then I'm just going to figure out how I want my title here. I didn't want it to go right over top of the Y on happy. I wanted to be able to see the loop on the Y. And I decided I would put every other letter flat and then pop dot every other letter. So it adds a bit of interest and dimension to my title. And I like how these 2 layered together. I did debate saying Thursday, even though I was using the abbreviations for all the other ones. But if I wanted that kind of loop on the Y to show, then I just couldn't add all of the letters. I'm going to do another kind of cluster at the bottom here. I have a couple pieces. I ripped both edges of those. And then this little strip here, I just flagged both ends. I was working from scraps, and so that's why some of my pieces are little like this. Instead of just having a whole strip, I was working with the scraps that I had. And I'm just going to have something here. It's like a little shelf to set my photo on so that my photo is just not floating in the middle of the page. And of course, I wanted to have another little cluster of embellishments. So I'm bringing in the hearts from the top left into the bottom right to kind of help your eye travel across the page, both with die cuts and with stickers. I'm playing around with the phrase stickers here and where I wanted them to be and what fit where, and I'm happy with how that turned out. And then I grabbed another sticker, I put that up on foam, and then added a little heart sticker to that one as well. If you're enjoying this video so far, I hope you'll hit that like button. It just really helps out my channel, and I would really appreciate it. Now you can see we did a little bit of jump in time here. So on the back side of the flip-flap insert, I went ahead and just used strips of pattern paper of several of the different patterns. I cut them in different lengths, 3 inches, 3.5. The longest are 4 inches. And I used these stitch hexagon thin cuts that are retired to do my journaling. Added a couple stickers there. I decided to keep my photos all in one column with little strips of black cardstock on either side. So it's fairly simple design, but I did spend quite a while on figuring out which patterns and where they were going to go and how long they should be. So in the effort to keep this video somewhat manageable in time, I did cut out part of that process. Now on this side of the page, I'm figuring out what cards I'm going to use. The Happy Day card, I just put 7 different things from this day that I wanted to remember. Love this paperboard piece. I backed with white cardstock again because that just really helps it pop against the multicolored background of all those balloons. It's kind of funny. I ended up using some of those party time cards, and they have kind of a birthday feel to them because that is the theme. And this was right after my daughter's birthday. So when you see like balloons and streamers and stuff in my photos, it's just because her birthday decorations were still up. I spent a lot of time doing her decorations and making balloon garlands and all kinds of crazy things. And so I wanted to leave those things up for as long as I could take it. And so my pictures look kind of party themed, even though they're not, but it works in with the party time Picture My Life cards. I am writing some extra journaling that's going to go on top of that bottom photo, just on a strip of white cardstock. And then I ended it with a little banner sticker, and I added another little butterfly sticker on there because I wanted to continue that butterfly theme. Now I attached my flip flap onto the page there. Just wanted to make sure that they lined up on the left-hand side when it's closed, so it's nice and flush. And then I just kind of split the difference vertically because these flip flaps are a little bit smaller than the pocket page. The pocket page is a little bit larger than 12 by 12 just because you have those gaps between all the pockets. So there's a little bit showing at the bottom and a little bit showing at the top, which is fine with me. Doesn't bother me at all, but that is something to note if that's something that might bother you. But I love how this came together. It's super interesting to look at, lots of color, lots of things to like stop and read, and then interactive elements. I should mention that top right photo, I did stamp on it. It says playing. I will show you the stamp set that I used for that later, but I wanted to make a note of that I had stamped on that photo too. It's one of my favorite things in this kind of project is stamping on my photos. I don't know why I don't do it more on like regular layouts, but I definitely should make a note of that and do that more. All right, now we are on to Friday. Now, this 4x6 photo of my dog Frankie standing up on my daughter's high chair with his tongue sticking out, I absolutely had to find a place for it somewhere in this project, and I wanted to use it as like a full-size photo because it was so cute. So that is staying as a 4x6. I'm working on a 6x6 white daisy cardstock piece as my base page. Here I ran into the same thing. I'm using up my scraps and my piece was not long enough, so I cut it, and then I'm just trimming off anything that hangs over the edge. I almost cut this in the wrong spot. It almost was not high enough, but I'm using this tag that I used some tag thin cuts to cut from the pattern paper, and it will just cover that white gap. I should have cut a little bit higher, but I was not thinking about that. So I have my ribbon in my tag ahead of time this time, and I am going to use glue dots to affix it because that worked so well. And then same thing on this Friday, I'm going to put the R down flat and then pop dot the other two letters. I just like how these looked all kind of overlapped and with a little bit of dimension. So here I am putting those glue dots under there. You probably wouldn't need it, but I like the fact that when it's going in the pocket that I don't have to work with it to try and get it to lay nice and smooth. It's automatically just going to lay down. Now I had 2 pieces of 6x6 white cardstock there, but I'm not going to use both. I was just using that to help me have a visual of how this would be laid out. And then I'm just going to stick this on the back side. When you're sticking stuff on the back side, just flip it over and double check. Make sure it's not upside down or to the side or something. But this was all good. It was going the right direction. That Lagoon colored mat is actually from some UV coated cardstock that has like a pattern on it from a past special. At this point, I was starting to pull in a little bit of cardstock and things because my pattern paper was starting to dwindle. So you can see several spots on this one where I went ahead and used that Lagoon cardstock. It has a subtle pattern to it. It's kind of shiny. So I liked that. Here where I'm doing my little like mini title, I didn't like how this was sitting. So what I did was I pulled that up and then I ripped it and made it a little bit thinner, which I liked, and also just added to that ripped kind of motif that I have going throughout this project. Instead of using a border punch, I ripped my paper. I added a little butterfly there from the paperboard, and I used a mixture of printed and handwritten journaling all throughout my project. It just depended on the page and how much I had to say. I did keep the same fonts though, so I had kind of like a title font and then a just regular printed type font. And I kept it the same size and mostly and the same font so that it really went well throughout the whole project because I didn't want to be switching fonts. I like it when they stay the same. I have a hard enough time getting my handwriting to look the same because I tend to switch out my letters and do them in different styles, which is already annoying enough. This little photo of my daughter is her sitting on my parents' bench waiting for me to pick her up from their house. And it was kind of taken from a little bit far away, so I just cut it down to a 2x2. And that gave me room to layer some stickers and that paperboard little black branch. And I decided I needed a bigger flower there. And I like how this turned out, gave me a little bit of design on this page where it was looking kind of just a little bit boring, right? You got printing, you got photos. The black card at the bottom that says not the best day. I used the Project Life app to do my photos and to make like the little 3x4 photos. And one of the options in there are like some different title cards and journaling cards and things. And so that black card is actually from that. And it was perfect because on this day, my husband had been finishing off our deck project and installing the glass. And when the last panel of glass he was putting in the deck shattered. It was such a mess. It was the end of a super long day. And I pulled out this stamp set, which is all like bummer, hashtag fail, like those kind of sentiments. And I thought it was perfect for this. I don't think I've ever used that stamp set, but I'm stamping Just Breathe. And then I'm going to stamp UGG above it. Same thing using the Archival black. And just to fill in that little corner of the photo, and it perfectly illustrates how we were feeling. I mean, to be honest, there's probably some curse words going on there, but I don't have a stamp for that. So this is a little bit more family friendly. I put that in a flip flap, so the story is actually hidden behind a flip flap, and then I was able to include 2 pictures of that horrible shattered glass mess. I do like that flip flaps can let you do some more hidden journaling. I mean, it's not fully hidden. People can flip it up and read it. But a lot of times if other people are looking through, they just kind of, skip over a big chunk of journaling like that. And they're just going to kind of look at the pictures and keep on going. So that is a fun feature of flip flaps as well. And this is all that I have for Friday. So I'm just going to pop this into a 6x6 page protector, and that is it. It's pretty simple. I was starting to get to the point in my project where I was starting to wear out. I was like, okay, I've been at this for a long time. This is such a big project doing this all at once. And I was kind of getting done. So I was like, this is good enough for Friday. Let's move on to Saturday. Now, speaking of Saturday, that is going to be on the back side of this protector. And I didn't end up filming the process of me putting this together because it's super simple. So I have one 4x6 flip flap here with a couple of pictures of posts off of social media. And I used this Let's Stay Home set. So this was a stamp set that came out during the pandemic, and it had some good ones like in the news and current events. So I put those onto my journaling card, and then that onto the back of my title card. Then I embellished my other little journaling card here with some more stickers and some tag stickers just to add a little bit of color. I stamped the Heart This Place, again, right on my photo. I had a perfectly empty spot on my photo, so I was like, that is going there. And this set here, the All Day Everyday, I actually used a few times. Back on the other page where I had said that I stamped Playing, that is from this set. This Pocket Plus insert holds 3, or actually 6 4x4 photos. And on the back here, I actually took one of the pocket cards, the Picture My Life cards, and I cut it. And on the bottom here, I actually hand cut around the presents and everything. The party is actually over. We were taking down all the balloons and Isabella was helping me. So that's what my journaling is talking about. So I have the top part of the card at the top, and then on the bottom, I put the rest of that card and I popped it up on foam tape. It's pretty simple. Like I said, I was getting to the end. I was saving the rest of my creativity for my final layout. You can see that pink card is showing through the break in the pocket page. If that bothers you, that's something to keep in mind too, is if you're using flip flaps that overlap several pockets, they will show through. So I am going to end my project, this is Sunday, with a 12x12 layout as well as a 6x12 flip flap. So I was starting to get a little bit low on the pattern paper, and I thought a good idea would be to use 1-inch circle punch and do like a little grid. So I found it a little bit tricky to line up the circles correctly. So I used my T ruler and I made a line in the middle at 6 inches. And then I made another line going across at 1.5 inches, I believe. And then also a 1/4 inch up from the bottom and a 1/4 inch in from both sides. So this is the flip flap piece that's going to go. I wanted to make sure the kind of polka dot pattern was going to flow right across onto my flip flap insert. Once I had my guidelines there, the circles are resting just above those pencil lines so that I can come back and erase them. I went ahead and just eyeballed the bottom row, stuck down the bottom row, and then I'm using my T ruler to help me line up the second row with the first row, so they all start at the same point. I would say if you're doing this, make sure you do very light pencil lines and to do it on white cardstock, because that is the easiest to erase and you're not going to be removing color off of like a colored piece of pattern paper. And this came off pretty good. There was a few areas I had gotten a little heavy-handed with the pencil and I had to go back and really erase it. I'm also making sure that I'm not only measuring, but I am also matching it up with the page. I wanted to make sure that this was going to be the exact same height. Even if my measurements were slightly off on my 12x12 page or whatever, I wanted to make sure that they were the same. Because on something that is so rigid like a grid, when you're off, I think it really shows. So I kind of skipped ahead. I kept it really simple for this card. I stamped on my photo again. That was from the pandemic set. Here for the Sunday reset, that is printed right on my photo. It just cut off the very edge of that printing. I thought I had it in far enough, but it just cut off the edge. And then I have a simple little cluster right here on my 3x4 photo. I love that I included a photo of my fridge because that is something that changes, right? With the season, our favorite foods. And then on the journaling card here, I just used a piece of white cardstock and ripped a piece of pattern paper, added some of those paperboard die cuts. So nothing too intense, but I wanted to kind of have the first part of the day in that little pocket plus. And then here on this side where I have the 12 by 12 and the flip flap, I love that I got to use a 6 by 8 photo. I layered together a few stickers. And then down here, I had that border sticker again, so I had to cut a little gap. I filled that in with a circle and then one of the die cut flowers over top, and then some journaling below that. I was kind of running out of room for journaling, so I had to squeeze some in there. Now, when the flip flap opens, this is what you're going to see. So pretty simple design. The photos are definitely the star of the show here. But I wanted to keep all the park photos on the flip flap, so the front side and the back side of the flip flap. I layered together a couple more stickers, really trying to bust through that sticker stash. And then I did matte all my photos. I used Lagoon and green apple cardstock, and I gave them like a really thin border, but I felt like they needed something. And then here for the stamping, I used that All Day Everyday again. I really love this set. And I made a currently list. So I used some of the paperboard elements, the butterflies and the arrow, and then I stamped the eating, reading, making, watching, playing with the coordinating inks that go with this collection. So I have Lagoon, Green Apple, Sundance, and Candy Apple. And then I was able to write just like a sentence or two about what Isabella is into right now. I really love the idea. I was looking for a spot to include a currently list, and as I was building this final page, it just kind of hit me that I had this perfect little spot at the end of my photos where I could include some of those little details that just don't make it into my regular layouts. They kind of get forgotten sometimes, and I think that's the magic of these types of projects, whether it's day in the life or week in the life. It prompts you to think about the little things and maybe some things that are missing in your overall scrapbooks. So here I'm going ahead and putting this 6 by 12 page into my flip flap. And sometimes you have to trim down your pages a little bit to get them in, or just kind of fuss with them and wiggle them in there. I did get it in there, and now I just need to put my 12 by 12 page into a protector because I like to stick my flip flaps on top of the protector. I don't like to stick them to the page and then have to cut slits and things. I like them better on the outside and they stick really well, so that's fine. You just want to make sure that your holes are going the right direction when you put in your 12 by 12 page, that they are on the left side, and then this I'm going to adhere so it's flush with the right side. And because I'm putting on top of a 12 by 12, it should line up perfectly top to bottom as well. If you've never tried flip flaps before, you definitely should. I love using these things because they just extend the opportunities for more photos, more stories, and they come in a whole bunch of different sizes too, so you can get them to match your photos. The 4x6, the 3x4, 4x4, 3x3, those are all sizes that I use quite regularly. Or you can go big like I have here with the 6x12 and the 8x12, and those just give you so many chances to create really fun interactive pages, and you can put more than one on a page. So I could have put one on the other side of this and had it open up like a little book. There's just so many things you can do. Here's a look at my finished project. So if you watched my first video, then you have already seen this. I did put it into a 12 by 12 everyday life album, so it has the rings so that you can see what this looks like actually in an album, how it's going to sit. So once again, sorry for the reflections. I tried to tilt the pages so you can kind of see what's going on, but if you want to see these first ones up closer, make sure you check out the video that's linked at the end of this video and also down in the description. Then you can see the whole process for the first section of pages, and also my thinking on how I narrow down what photos I'm going to use. So all told, in this project, I fit in 79 photos, and I am including in these picture collages, I'm counting each photo as a separate photo in there. You could use more flip-flaps if you want to squeeze in even more photos, or more photo collages to squeeze in more photos. but I love this project. It was a little bit of labor of love. It did take me a while, especially since I was filming it for you guys, right? I could probably go a little bit faster just on my own, but I wanted to show you bits of my process at least, even though I didn't show you everything. It would have taken hours and hours of footage to show you every step along the way, but I hope it gave you a good idea of how a project like this can come together and give you some ideas for your own week in the life project or something similar. This would also be really fun with travel photos or a certain event. I mean, if you wanted to do like a December daily, but in more of a 12 by 12 format, you could use this for that sort of thing too. I like the idea of it being some sort of theme, whether it's a trip, a holiday, a week in your life. I know I'll probably want to do this project again. Allie Edwards is actually doing her next week in the life for 2023, starting next week already. I'm not sure if I'm ready to jump into this project again, considering I just finished last year's, but I'm thinking if I don't do it, I might regret it. So I don't know. I'm still on the fence. If you guys are doing a week in the life, I would love to hear about it down in the comments, or if you have a different way or a simpler way that you have tried and loved, I'd also love to hear about that. And if this project gave you ideas for something else that you would like to document with all the Pocket Plus and the flip flaps and all that kind of stuff. If you have other projects now kind of in mind that you want to try out in this style, I'd love to hear about it in the comments as well. I do think sticking with one collection, maybe two, that flow together really well does help, and also limiting yourself to a select amount of supplies. Because if I had left this open to like every embellishment I own, and it would have taken me so much longer because I would just be digging through things, trying to find that perfect embellishment, trying to find that perfect stamp set. So I think if you narrow it down and you limit yourself, you'll have an easier time doing that. So this is the end of this project. You can see I have the backside of a 12 by 12, so I can put this into my regular album and just put it in my next layout. I hope you enjoyed this video and it gave you tons of ideas to use on your own projects. Make sure you click on this video here so you can go watch the first part of this project come together and my whole workflow for organizing my photos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.